Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is VlogsBoutNothin. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy night to join me. I really do appreciate that. It is, in fact, Wednesday, um, and last night was the presidential debate, which is what we're going to be talking about. So, again, thanks for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, my name's Albert. I think I already said that, but, I vlog 4 times a day. So, yeah, welcome once more. But regardless, I want to talk about how, credit where credit is due, and Kamala Harris completely destroyed the old guy last night. I mean, it was pretty clear that the guy being closer to 80 was not in any way, shape, or form the same kind of human being the person his younger was. Maybe not by that much, 20 years or so, but still. And so I kind of thought that credit where credit is due, and also just to generally give my opinion on how I thought the debate went. So, to give you guys some background, I am a speech and debate person. I was a formal competitor for my high school here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. As it was, I was the captain of our speech and debate team for 2 years, and we both those years we won a state title, and I won several myself individually, but most importantly, we won them as a team. So we were back to back state speech and debate champions. What a very nerdy thing to say. So I say this because and then in college I debated as well, and I debated many times on national um, competitions and stuff, which is why you guys always kind of hear me talk about traveling when I was young and stuff. That was one of the reasons why. And so debate is a really big part of my life. It's, I think, probably the sole reason I'm able to talk for 50 minutes straight every single night, back to back to back to back, with no edits or just no, ability to even edit if I wanted to. So I make improvisational speeches in an extemporaneous kind of a way. It's sort of an interesting thing that I try to do here 4 times a day. Yeah. So, speech and debate's a big part of my life. It always has been for a long, long time, long time. And so, when I watched the debate last night, I was obviously there was. I mean, we can all be honest with each other, right? As it concerns, sometimes it did feel like the moderators were also really questioning former President Trump in certain instances as it pertained to fact checks simultaneously while the speakers are giving their presentations. And then, furthermore, I kind of also, from a speech and debate perspective, can clearly see that Donald Trump went in to debate, and Vice President Kamala Harris was clearly ready to present a case. And there's a difference, slightly. They're kind of more in the same thing, but the way they're executed are completely different. Point in fact, last night, Kamala Harris presented a case like prosecutors do. And wouldn't you know, her case was pretty solid. Pretty solid case that she gave up there. Almost as if she's a former prosecutor. I mean, that's not an attorney up there talking. That's a prosecutor. In every which way, the methodology of communication she used to convey her messages ultimately were of that nature. And I know this to be true because of my experiences with communication and forensics as it concerns speech and debate and the performing art of those things. And so I felt it was real interesting because that's what happens. I mean, there are different categories within speech and debate. They're called individual events, or IEs, or Lincoln Douglas versions or variations of debate. And they differ from category to category. And there are some categories that do involve presenting a solid case and then defending those points. But that's not really it's a kind of a debate, but it's scripted. It's really relies solely on execution. And again, credit where credit is due. It was executed almost perfectly last night. She really, really did a fantastic job of presenting her case to the American people. Dare I say, we probably still aren't going to listen to her. There was a vibe in me last night where I really felt like she is definitely presidential material. This is without question. I mean, I had not ever heard her speak, honestly, like that on a platform where she was given a task, and in this case, it was to present her case to the American people as to why she would be our president. But again, that's kind of where she messed up, in that I didn't really understand why it was better for her to be president last night. Moreover, than I kind of understood that Donald Trump should not be president. And that's complex because I feel like we all feel like that. And I still feel like, going back to what I just said, are we going to still elect former President Donald Trump to be our new president, our president elect in November, and then in January swear him in for a second term? You know, who's to say? I am definitely, after last night, far more convinced that young people and women are going to be hitting the polls, the booths, the polling booths. I feel like that particular demographic, I just am concerned with what men are going to do. That's what my concern is. The same men who I would argue are going to tell maybe their partner they vote for, a Democrat, and they actually voted for Trump. All of what I'm saying, just so that we're speaking clearly and out loud, comes from many different studies, none of which I can clearly cite at this particular point in time because it is an improvisational speech. But particularly during like the 2016 Clinton Trump campaign, where there had been studies conducted from many universities all over the country, including places like the Gallup poll, where spouses were telling their spouses that they were voting for, Clinton, but in fact they voted for Trump. And this was across the board for both genders, as it identifies with both female and male. So here we are, and 8 years later, we have another female running to be president of the United States. That would make two in the last 8 years, right? And is America ready to elect a woman to become president? I think that is the bigger question. It's not really a question now about partisanship. It doesn't matter. There aren't any such thing as swing states. Boomers and Xers can invent all the cool graphs that they play around with on PowerPoint that we all could do 30 years ago that they're sharing with the world now. Like PowerPoint is like, key for the boomer presentation. But regardless, it truly is going to be about, I really strongly feel, younger people coming out and showing up to vote just so much as women, all women voting for Kamala Harris as well. That's what it's going to take. Because ultimately, again, this is a question of whether or not this country is ready to have a woman as president. Obviously, as a millennial, I feel like I can speak for my generation when I say with complete confidence that we've been ready to elect a woman as president so far as back as 2016. And we've also been ready to be a lot more social as it concerns our future, way more than the old dudes that have been running the country for the last 8 years. So again, it's just an interesting sort of perspective to have, and I feel like there probably isn't going to be another opportunity to make this kind of a reality a reality. There is a good chance that Kamala Harris might pull off what I'd argue is going to be an upset. And I blame the stubborn good old boys all over the country, as well as large evangelical, really weird neo-Christian ideology pushing, it's just, I mean, have you guys read about like the 2020 Project 2025? It's just, there's a lot going on. And again, honestly, after last night, I'm not sure. I think that's a good feeling. I want to be not sure because at the very least, at least it'll make it feel more fair. Because my concern has been, as it's publicly been presented for months now, that she's a far weaker candidate, and this country has drank its Kool-Aid years ago and has decided to follow this path where we elect these people who commit treason against our country, and yet for some reason think that that is okay. A lot of stuff's going on. So former President Donald Trump looked very, very weak last night. From a fellow debater, he did a terrible job. He kept arguing about a president that wasn't there. Who cares where Biden is, dude? You're on stage with Kamala Harris right now, like on national TV. Can you, like, pretend to know what you're doing? So there was a lot of moments in there, right? But again, you got to give credit where credit is due. And Kamala Harris presented her case very well last night. And I can only hope that with the obvious push and help of the media, and even so much to say, some would say the moderators, that this woman gets the opportunity she needs to have to defeat this guy. I still, you know, she kind of brought up her being a prosecutor in her closing argument, which was really weird. That was another thing. Like, she could have just ended that, but like, she had to. I guess some older millennial out there told her to identify with what she was as a political campaign advisor. This is just my theory. And they were like, when you close out on the final point of your speech, make sure you remind the people that you understand that we know that you were a prosecutor. I think ultimately that's going to work against her. And I think it's going to be a bigger story than what people may even talk about as it concerns the rhetoric that people and communicators choose to use. She was doing fine until she sold herself short by selling people the truth, in that she could have just not reminded the whole country that she was a prosecutor, because she presented this really, really cool case as to why Donald Trump was not the better person to be president. And then she, ended the evening, 3 hours of debating, by acknowledging that, she was a former prosecutor and stuff. I mean, man, that was, again, I just my opinion, but you would have done so much better if you had not listened to what, again, I think was that old millennial telling you to identify with what you were, because it was something that was going to be a point of contention. Nobody brings up Donald Trump being a criminal. I mean, you're a politician. President Harris, Vice President Harris. You're not obliged to the same rules as other people in their professions are, and one of them is just not reminding people that you were somebody that put people in jail, because that's what prosecutors do. And I'm sure many, many people Googled prosecutor last night. I'm sure of it. But I hope that you guys have a lovely evening, and thanks again for joining me on my channel. All right, bye.